Run! Don't look back! Giulia Moretti clutched her 10-year-old son Matteo's hand as they sprinted through the narrow alleyways of Naples. Her breathing came in ragged gasps, but she refused to slow down. Heavy footsteps pounded behind them. The men chasing them weren't ordinary criminals. They were ruthless hitmen, and every second they gained brought them closer. "Mama! I can't!" Matteo cried, tears streaming down his face. "You can, amore! Keep running!" Giulia shouted, pulling him forward with every ounce of strength she had. A gunshot echoed through the alley. The bullet shattered a glass window beside them. Matteo screamed. Giulia threw herself over her son, shielding him with her large, chubby frame. "No," one of the hitmen yelled. "Don't kill the boy. The woman is our target." Giulia's heart froze. They didn't even care if she died in front of her child. She looked around desperately. A dead end. Her chest tightened. "No," she whispered. The 5 armed men slowly surrounded them. One of them smirked. "You're finished, Giulia." She wrapped both arms around Matteo. "If you want me," she said, her voice trembling, "let my son go." The leader laughed. "You still think you're the one making deals?" Matteo buried his face against her.
"Mama."
"I love you," she whispered into his hair. Then, the roar of powerful engines filled the alley. Every hitman turned. 3 black armored SUVs screeched to a halt. The doors opened in perfect unison. Men dressed in black suits stepped out, each carrying enough authority to silence the street without saying a word. Then he appeared, over 6 feet tall, broad shoulders, dark tailored suit. His neck disappeared beneath intricate black tattoos that climbed toward his jawline. Ink covered both hands, disappeared beneath his sleeves, and stretched across every visible inch of skin. Rumors said there wasn't a single part of his body untouched by tattoos. His icy gaze swept across the alley. The hitmen immediately lowered their weapons. One whispered in terror, "Boss." The man spoke only 6 words. "You chose the wrong woman tonight." Silence. Even the rain seemed to stop. Then everything exploded into chaos. 24 hours earlier, Giulia Moretti had never imagined her ordinary Tuesday would end with someone trying to kill her. At 34 years old, she had learned to ignore cruel comments. "You're too fat. You'd be pretty if you lost weight. Nobody hires women your size." She had heard them all. Still, every morning she smiled anyway. She was proudly Italian, born and raised in Naples. Her soft, round cheeks, warm brown eyes, and very large, chubby figure often made strangers judge her before they even knew her name. She carried more weight than most women, but she carried something even greater, an enormous heart. Her son Matteo always reminded her of that. "You give the best hugs in the whole world, Mama." She laughed every time. "That's because there's more of me to hug." Matteo giggled. "You'll always be my giant teddy bear. And you'll always be my favorite little troublemaker." Their apartment wasn't much. 2 tiny bedrooms, old furniture, bills stacked on the kitchen table. But it was filled with laughter. Ever since Matteo's father died in a construction accident 5 years earlier, Giulia had worked non-stop to keep food on the table. She spent mornings at a neighborhood bakery and evenings cleaning offices. She rarely slept more than 5 hours. Yet she never complained. That morning she kissed Matteo goodbye before school. "Promise me something," she said. "What?" "No fighting. I only fight when someone says bad things about you." Her smile faded. "They don't matter. They call you fat. They don't know me. They make me angry." She knelt despite aching knees. "Listen to me. I'm listening. Being kind takes more courage than being cruel." Matteo nodded slowly. "I'll try. That's my brave boy." As Giulia walked toward the bakery, she had no idea someone had already begun watching her. A black sedan sat across the street. Its windows were tinted. Inside, a man spoke into an earpiece. "Target confirmed." Another voice answered, "Keep watching." Hours passed peacefully. Customers came and went. Near closing time, an elderly man entered. His clothes were soaked from the rain. His hands shook violently. Some customers moved away from him. One woman covered her purse. The bakery owner frowned. "We're closing." The old man quietly asked, "Could I please have some water?" The owner sighed impatiently. "We're not a shelter." Before the old man could leave, Giulia stepped around the counter. "I'll help him." The owner rolled his eyes. "You're too soft, Giulia." "So my mother always said." She led the stranger to a chair. "Please sit." "You don't have to." "I know." She returned with warm bread, soup, and water. The old man's eyes filled with tears. "I can't pay." "I'm not asking you to." He looked at her carefully. "Why?" She smiled gently. "Because someday I hope someone helps my son when he needs it." The man stared at her for several seconds. "You have a son?" "My whole world." "You've taught him kindness?" "I try every single day." The old man nodded thoughtfully. "The world doesn't deserve people like you." She laughed softly. "The world doesn't get to decide who I become." He smiled for the first time. "What is your name?" "Giulia Moretti." "I'll remember it." "You don't have to." "Oh." His eyes suddenly became unusually sharp. "I never forget a debt." Before Giulia could ask what he meant, a sleek black luxury car stopped outside. Two men in expensive suits hurried inside. Every customer froze. The men ignored everyone else. They respectfully bowed their heads to the elderly stranger. "Sir, we've been looking everywhere." Giulia blinked. "Sir?" The old man slowly stood. Before leaving, he turned back. "Giulia." "Yes?" "If anyone ever asks whether kindness matters," he smiled, "tell them it can change destinies." Without another word, he walked outside. The two suited men opened the car door for him. The expensive vehicle disappeared into traffic. The bakery owner stared through the window. "Who on earth was that?" Giulia shrugged. "I honestly don't know." Neither of them noticed the black sedan parked across the street. The driver watched everything. He picked up his phone. The old man made contact. A voice replied instantly. "Keep following her." If you're enjoying this story so far, take a second to subscribe, like the video, and tell us in the comments, do you think Giulia's kindness is about to change her life or put her in even greater danger? Your support helps us bring you more cinematic stories like this. That evening, Giulia finished cleaning the bakery and walked home under the fading light. She felt exhausted, but something felt wrong. She glanced over her shoulder. A man stood across the street. When she looked directly at him, he walked away. She frowned. "Maybe I'm just tired." Her phone rang. "Mama!" Matteo shouted excitedly. "When are you coming home?" "I'm only a few minutes away. I made you a surprise." "You cooked?" "No." "Whew! It isn't burnt this time." Giulia laughed so hard that people walking past smiled. "I can't wait to see it." She ended the call. Then she heard it. Footsteps. Not one pair. Several. Slow. Deliberate. Following her. She stopped. The footsteps stopped. She walked again. They started again. A chill ran down her spine. She turned sharply. 3 men stood at the opposite end of the street, watching her without saying a word. One of them slowly smiled. Giulia's heartbeat thundered inside her chest. Something terrible had just begun. If you're already wondering who those men are, and why a simple act of kindness seems to have put Giulia in their sights, don't forget to like, share this story with a friend, and subscribe so you won't miss what happens next. Trust us. The danger is only beginning. Giulia tightened her grip on her handbag and forced herself to keep walking. "Don't panic," she whispered to herself. "Just get home." She refused to look back again. 1 block, then another. The footsteps remained, steady, patient. almost as if the men wanted her to know they were there. Her phone vibrated. Matteo. She answered immediately. Mama, I'm here, amore. Are you almost home? Just a few more minutes. You sound strange. I'm only tired. You promise? I promise. Okay, I'll wait by the window. No, Matteo. Why? Stay inside. Lock the door. But, promise me. A short silence followed. I promise. She hung up and quickened her pace. Behind her, one of the men spoke just loudly enough for her to hear. She's nervous. Another laughed. Good. Giulia felt a knot form in her stomach. She turned the corner toward her apartment building. The street was busy enough that she finally breathed a little easier. Families walked together. A fruit vendor called out to customers. Children laughed while kicking a football across the sidewalk. Surely they wouldn't do anything here. She hurried inside the building and climbed the stairs as fast as she could. The moment she entered her apartment, Matteo threw his arms around her. You took forever. She hugged him tightly. I'm sorry. He looked into her face. You've been crying. No. Mama. I said no. He didn't argue. Instead, he gently took her hand. I made pasta. You did. Well, I burned the first one. She laughed. And the second. I only burned it a little. You'll become a famous chef one day. I'll hire you. What will I do? You'll taste everything. They both laughed. For a moment, the fear disappeared. Then someone knocked on the apartment door. 3 slow knocks. Knock, knock, knock. Giulia froze. Matteo looked toward the door. Are you expecting someone? No. Another 3 knocks. Louder this time. Neither of them moved. A man's voice came from outside. Package delivery. Giulia frowned. I didn't order anything. It's already paid for. She remained silent. The voice changed. It won't take long. Still, she didn't answer. After nearly a minute, footsteps faded down the hallway. She slowly approached the peephole. Nobody. She carefully opened the door. A small black envelope rested on the floor. Nothing else. She picked it up. Inside was a single white card. It contained only one sentence. You should have walked away. Her hands began to shake. Mama? She quickly hid the card behind her back. It's nothing. Matteo tilted his head. You never lie very well. Before she could answer, her phone rang again. Unknown number. She hesitated before answering. Hello? A calm male voice replied. You were warned. Who is this? You helped someone who should have been left alone. I don't understand. You will. The line went dead. Giulia stared at the phone. What is happening? She whispered. The next morning, she decided not to tell anyone. She couldn't scare Matteo. She couldn't afford to lose work. Life had to continue. At the bakery, her best friend Sophia immediately noticed something was wrong. You look exhausted. I barely slept. Nightmares. I wish. Sophia folded her arms. Talk to me. Giulia looked around to make sure nobody was listening. I think someone is following me. Sophia's smile disappeared. Since when? Yesterday. You called the police? I don't even know what I'd tell them. Tell them exactly that. They'll think I'm imagining things. Sophia leaned closer. No, they'll investigate. I hope you're right. Just then the bakery bell rang. A sharply dressed man entered. Expensive watch, tailored suit, cold expression. He didn't even glance at the pastries. Instead, he looked directly at Giulia. You are Giulia Moretti. Yes. I'd like a private conversation. I don't know you. You don't need to. I think I do. He smiled politely. It concerns the elderly gentleman you helped yesterday. Every muscle in Giulia's body tightened. What about him? He appreciates your kindness. Is he all right? Perfectly. Then why are you here? To advise you. She crossed her arms. I'm listening. Forget you ever met him. She frowned. That's impossible. For your own safety. It was only soup and bread. You don't understand who that man is. Then explain it. I'm afraid I can't. He reached into his pocket and placed an envelope on the counter. There is 50,000 euros inside. Giulia stared at him in disbelief. What? Consider it a thank you. I can't accept that. You should. No. It's more money than you'll earn in years. I said no. His expression hardened. You don't realize how dangerous your decision is. My decision? Refusing this changes everything. She slowly pushed the envelope back toward him. I didn't help that man because I wanted money. He studied her face. You really mean that? Every word. After several seconds, he nodded. I'll inform him. Before leaving, he quietly added, Miss Moretti. Yes? Be careful today. The bell above the door rang as he disappeared. Sophia rushed over. What was that about? I honestly don't know anymore. Across the street, inside another parked vehicle, a pair of binoculars lowered. One man spoke into his radio. She refused the payment. Another voice answered almost immediately. So she's exactly who he described. What now? A pause. Then the chilling response came. Move to phase 2. That afternoon, Giulia left the bakery early and headed toward the office building where she worked evenings. The streets felt different now. Every reflection in every shop window made her glance twice. Every parked car seemed suspicious. Every stranger became a possible threat. As she entered the office building, her manager called out, Giulia. Yes? Conference room 7 needs cleaning first. Of course. She grabbed her cleaning supplies and walked toward the executive floor. The hallway was unusually quiet. She pushed open the conference room door. Empty. At least that's what she thought. Voices drifted through a slightly open connecting door. Tonight, the shipment arrives at midnight. No witnesses. Giulia stopped moving. She wasn't trying to listen, but the voices became clearer. Another man spoke. What about the prosecutor? He'll be dead before sunrise. Her heart skipped a beat. A fourth voice laughed. And the old man? We'll deal with Romano after the woman. Giulia frowned. The woman? Were they talking about her? She instinctively reached into her apron to silence her vibrating phone. Instead, her finger accidentally pressed the video recording button. She didn't even notice. The phone remained inside her pocket, quietly recording every word. Inside the room, one man suddenly stopped talking. Wait, another asked. What? I heard something. Giulia's breathing became shallow. She backed away as silently as possible. A chair scraped across the floor. Footsteps approached the connecting door. Someone grabbed the handle. It began to turn. If you're hooked by the mystery so far, this is the perfect time to subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment telling us who you think is really behind the hunt for Giulia. Your support helps this channel continue bringing you suspense-filled stories every week. The door swung open. Giulia forced herself to smile. Oh, I'm sorry. 3 men stared at her. One of them wore an expensive navy suit. Another had a scar running across his cheek. The third calmly closed a leather folder. What are you doing here? The scarred man asked. I'm cleaning. How long have you been outside? I just arrived. The 3 men exchanged a look. The man in the navy suit stepped closer. So, he said quietly, you didn't hear anything? Giulia swallowed. No, he smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was the kind of smile that promised trouble. We certainly hope you're telling the truth. As she walked away, she could feel all 3 pairs of eyes fixed on her back. The moment she reached the elevator, her phone buzzed again. Without looking, she slipped it into her bag. She had no idea that the accidental recording in her pocket had captured every word of a murder conspiracy, and that before the sun went down, those same men would discover exactly what she was carrying. Don't forget to like, share this story with someone who loves suspense, and subscribe before the next part, because Giulia's worst nightmare is about to begin, and there may be no turning back. The elevator doors slid shut. Only then did Giulia allow herself to breathe. Her hands were trembling so badly that she nearly dropped her cleaning supplies. "Pull yourself together," she whispered. The elevator descended one floor, then another. When the doors opened on the lobby, she walked out as calmly as she could. "Miss Moretti." She froze. The receptionist smiled. "A gentleman left this for you." Another envelope. Another chill raced through her body. Did he say who he was? The receptionist shook her head. "No, just that you'd understand." "I don't. I'm sorry." Giulia slipped the envelope into her handbag without opening it. She wanted nothing more than to go home. Outside, the sky had darkened. Rain began falling in heavy sheets. She hurried toward the bus stop. A black sedan rolled slowly past her. It didn't stop. It simply kept pace. Her pulse quickened. Not again. She crossed the street. The sedan crossed too. She ducked into a crowded cafe. The sedan continued another 50 meters before disappearing. Inside, Giulia leaned against the counter. "You don't look well," the barista said. "Could I have a glass of water?" "Of course." She drank it in one long gulp. "Better. A little." Her phone buzzed. "Sophia." "Giulia, where are you?" "Near Piazza Dante." "Listen carefully. What happened?" "3 men came looking for you." Giulia's stomach tightened. "What did they want?" "They showed me your picture." "What?" "They asked where you live." "What did you tell them?" "Nothing. Thank you. They didn't look like police." "I know." "Giulia." "Yes? I'm scared." "So am I." The call ended. Giulia opened the black envelope. Inside was another white card. This one contained only 4 words. "We know about Matteo." Her blood turned cold. "No." Tears filled her eyes instantly. "They know my son." She rushed out of the cafe and hailed the first taxi she saw. "My apartment, please." The driver nodded. Traffic crawled. Every red light felt like torture. She called Matteo. No answer. She called again. Still nothing. "Come on." Again. Voicemail. "Please answer." The taxi finally stopped outside her building. She threw money onto the front seat before the car had fully stopped. She ran upstairs. "Matteo." No answer. She unlocked the apartment door with shaking hands. "Matteo." Silence. Every room was empty. The television was on. His school backpack lay on the sofa. His favorite sneakers sat beside the door. But Matteo was gone. Matteo. She searched every room again. Closets. Bathroom. Balcony. Nothing. Her knees gave way. No. Just then, the bathroom door slowly opened. Matteo stepped out holding headphones. "Mama?" She burst into tears. Oh, thank God. She wrapped him in the tightest hug she'd ever given. He looked confused. "I was listening to music." "I called you." "I couldn't hear." She kissed the top of his head again and again. "You scared me." "I'm sorry." She couldn't stop crying. "Promise me something." "What?" "You never leave this apartment without telling me." "I promise." "And don't open the door." "I won't." "And if anyone asks about me?" "I'll say nothing." She smiled weakly. My brave boy. Later that evening, after Matteo had gone to bed, Giulia finally remembered the strange feeling she'd had in the conference room. She took out her phone. A notification appeared. "Video saved successfully." She frowned. "I don't remember recording anything." She opened the file. Voices filled the room. "The prosecutor dies tonight. Romano will fall. After we eliminate the woman." Giulia's eyes widened. Oh my God. She fast-forwarded. Every conversation had been captured. Names, dates, plans, even faces. The camera angle was dark inside her pocket, but the voices were crystal clear. They're planning murders. Her breathing became uneven. I have to go to the police. Another thought stopped her. What if the police were involved? The men had sounded powerful, connected, rich. She remembered one sentence. The prosecutor dies tonight. There wasn't much time. Her phone suddenly rang. Unknown number. She hesitated before answering. Hello? The familiar calm voice returned. Miss Moretti, you're in danger. I know. You heard the meeting. Her heart stopped. How do you know that? They know too. She looked toward the window. Who are you? A friend. I don't have friends who hide their names. You helped an old man yesterday. Realization flashed across her face. You're connected to him. Yes. Who is he? Someone whose enemies are now your enemies. I don't understand. You don't need to. I need answers. You need to survive. She almost shouted. They know about my son. A brief silence followed. Then the man spoke more softly. Listen to me carefully. I'm listening. Leave your apartment immediately. What? They're coming. When? They're already on their way. The line went dead. Giulia didn't hesitate. She rushed into Matteo's bedroom. Wake up. He rubbed his eyes. Mama, we have to go. Now? Right now. Why? I'll explain later. Within 2 minutes they were outside. Rain soaked them instantly. Giulia looked around frantically. Every passing car made her jump. Where are we going? Matteo asked. I don't know yet. They walked quickly toward the nearest train station. Halfway there, a black van screeched to a halt in front of them. Its side door flew open. 4 masked men jumped out. Grab her! Giulia screamed. Run, Matteo! The boy sprinted toward the crowded square. Giulia shoved one attacker away with surprising strength. Get off me. Another grabbed her arm. Come quietly. Never. She bit his hand. He yelled in pain. You little. She slammed her handbag into his face. People nearby finally noticed. What is happening? Call the police. The attackers hesitated. Sirens echoed somewhere in the distance. Move, their leader shouted. The men jumped back into the van. It sped away before anyone could stop it. Matteo ran back to her. Mama, she hugged him tightly. It's okay. No, it isn't. I know. People gathered around them. Do you know those men? No. Should someone call an ambulance? We're fine. An elderly woman touched Giulia's shoulder. You should report this. I will. But deep inside, she no longer believed the police could protect them. Across the city, inside a luxurious private estate surrounded by high stone walls, the elderly man Giulia had helped sat quietly in a leather chair. Across from him stood the tattooed giant in a perfectly tailored black suit. Dark ink covered his neck, his hands, and disappeared beneath the open collar of his shirt, stretching across his muscular body. His piercing eyes remained fixed on the security footage playing on a large screen. The footage showed the attempted kidnapping. The older man sighed. I warned you. The younger man clenched his tattooed fists. They touched an innocent woman. They underestimated kindness. They threatened a child. They crossed every line. The old man slowly looked at him. What will you do, Luca? Luca Romano's voice became ice. I'll keep my promise. They don't know about the promise. They're about to. His father nodded once. Bring them here. I will. Alive. Luca's expression didn't change. If they surrender, and if they don't? Luca turned toward the window overlooking the lights of Naples. They chose violence. A bodyguard approached cautiously. Boss? What? We've identified the organization behind today's attack. Luca didn't even turn around. Who? The Belandi Syndicate. Another bodyguard added. They've also discovered the woman still has the recording. Luca's jaw tightened. So they've realized their mistake. They've sent every available crew. His father slowly stood. Then there's no more time. Luca nodded once. Prepare the convoy. Yes, boss. And find Giulia Moretti. What if Belandi reaches her first? Luca finally turned around. The tattoos creeping up his neck seemed even darker beneath the room's lighting. They won't. Why are you so certain? His voice carried absolute certainty. Because before this night ends, he paused. Every road leading to her will belong to me. If this story has kept you on the edge of your seat, now's the perfect moment to subscribe, like this video, and tell us in the comments, do you think Giulia should trust Luca Romano, or should she keep running? We'd love to hear your theory. Meanwhile, unaware that two powerful criminal empires were now moving because of her, Giulia held Matteo's hand and disappeared into the rainy streets. She believed she was escaping. She had no idea that within the next hour, every exit from the city would be sealed, and every hitman in Naples would receive the same chilling order. Find Giulia Moretti, dead or alive. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because the final part delivers the explosive showdown, the shocking truth behind Luca Romano's promise, and the fate that will change Giulia and Matteo's lives forever. Rain poured across the streets of Naples as Giulia pulled Matteo through the crowd. Every passing face looked suspicious. Every parked vehicle made her heart race. She wanted to believe they could disappear into the city, but deep inside she knew the hunt had already begun. "Mama," Matteo whispered, struggling to keep up. "Where are we going?" "I don't know yet, amore. Are those bad men still following us? I won't let them hurt you. You always say that, because it's true." Before she could say another word, tires screeched behind them. 3 black SUVs blocked the intersection. Another black van appeared from the opposite direction. Giulia's face turned pale. "They found us." The side doors of the van burst open. 8 armed men stepped onto the street. Their leader pointed directly at Giulia. "There she is." People screamed and scattered in every direction. Matteo clung to his mother's arm. "Mama!" Giulia stepped in front of him. "If you want someone," she raised both shaking hands. "Take me," the leader laughed. "We're taking both of you." Suddenly, a deafening roar echoed through the street. Another convoy of black armored SUVs stormed toward the intersection. One after another, they formed a wall between Giulia and the hitmen. Every door opened simultaneously. More than 20 men in tailored black suits stepped out with military precision. No one fired. No one spoke. They simply waited. Finally, one polished shoe touched the pavement. Then another. Luca Romano emerged from the center vehicle. The rain soaked his black shirt almost instantly, revealing the outlines of the intricate tattoos covering his neck and hands. As he removed his jacket and handed it to one of his men, colorful ink stretched across his muscular forearms. Rumors throughout Italy claimed there wasn't a single inch of Luca Romano's body that wasn't covered in tattoos, telling the story of his family's bloodline, victories and losses. His icy eyes settled on Giulia, then on Matteo, then on the hitmen. His voice was calm. "Step away from the woman." The hitmen exchanged nervous glances. Their leader tried to stand his ground. "This doesn't concern you." Luca slowly smiled. "It concerns me now. You want a war?" The smile disappeared. "You started one the moment you threatened a child." The leader raised his weapon. "We have orders. So do I." Luca lifted one tattooed hand. His men instantly surrounded the street. The leader suddenly realized they were hopelessly outnumbered. "You'd risk your empire," he pointed at Giulia. "For her?" Luca answered without hesitation. "I'd risk much more than that." Giulia stared at him in disbelief. "I don't even know you." He looked at her for the first time. "No, you've never met me, but my family knows yours." She frowned. "What are you talking about?" "My father, the elderly man, the same man you fed when everyone else turned him away." Her eyes widened. "It was him. He told me everything. I only gave him soup. You gave him dignity. I didn't expect anything." "Exactly." The hitmen shifted uneasily. Their leader barked impatiently. "Enough talking." He aimed his pistol. Before anyone else could react, a sharp crack echoed through the street. The weapon flew from his hand. One of Luca's bodyguards had disarmed him with astonishing precision. The remaining hitmen immediately reached for their guns. Luca's expression never changed. "Don't." For a brief second, nobody moved. Then police sirens echoed in the distance. The hitmen looked relieved. Giulia wasn't. Neither was Luca. He quietly said, "Those aren't the police you're hoping for." Several patrol cars arrived. Officers jumped out. Instead of arresting the hitmen, their commander walked toward Luca. "We'll take custody from here." Luca looked directly into his eyes. "No." The officer frowned. "This is official police business." "No. You don't have authority here." Luca stepped closer. "You sold yours the day you accepted Belandi's money." The commander's face changed instantly. "You should watch your accusations." Luca nodded toward one of his men. The bodyguard handed Giulia's phone to him. Giulia gasped. "My phone." "You dropped it while running," Luca said. "I made sure it stayed safe." He pressed play. The recorded conversation echoed across the silent street. "The prosecutor dies tonight. Pay the police commander. Kill the woman." Every officer froze. The commander's face drained of color. One younger officer slowly looked toward his superior. "Sir," another whispered, "is this real?" The commander suddenly reached for his weapon. He never touched it. Half a dozen of Luca's bodyguards already had him surrounded. At the same moment, several unmarked government vehicles arrived. Men wearing official investigative jackets stepped out. Their leader held up identification. Federal Anti-Mafia Directorate. The street became completely silent. The lead investigator looked directly at Giulia. "Miss Moretti, yes. Your recording just prevented multiple murders." She blinked. "My recording? We've been investigating Belandi for 3 years. You have enough evidence now." He smiled. "You gave us exactly what we needed." Within minutes, the corrupt officers were handcuffed. The surviving hitmen surrendered one by one. Across the street, reporters began arriving. Camera flashes lit up the rain-soaked night. Giulia stepped backward. "I don't want this." Luca gently spoke. "You won't have to face it alone." She looked into his eyes. "Why? Why protect me? You still don't understand." He motioned toward another vehicle. The elderly man stepped out. Giulia instantly recognized him. "You?" He smiled warmly. "My dear Giulia, I'm so glad you're safe." She embraced him without thinking. "I've been so worried." "I know." She pulled back. "Who are you really?" "My name is Vittorio Romano." Her eyes moved slowly toward Luca. "Romano." Vittorio nodded. "I'm his father." She looked speechless. You thought I was homeless." "I'm sorry." He laughed. "And that is exactly why I trusted you." "I don't understand." Vittorio gently placed both hands over hers. "When you met me, I had dismissed every security guard following me. You were alone. I wanted to know whether anyone would help an old man without expecting something in return. You didn't have to test people. I know. But you passed without ever knowing there was a test. I wasn't taking one. You were simply being yourself." Tears formed in Giulia's eyes. "I only did what anyone should do." Vittorio smiled sadly. "No, they should, but very few actually do." Luca stepped beside his father. "He came home that night and spoke about you for hours." Giulia looked at him. "He did?" He said. Luca's usually cold voice softened. That he had finally met someone whose kindness couldn't be bought. She lowered her eyes. "I refused the money because it felt wrong, and that's exactly why you deserved protection." Matteo finally stepped forward. He looked up at Luca. "Were you really going to save my mom?" Luca knelt until they were eye level. "Yes, even if there were 100 bad men. Even then, you promise." "I already made that promise." Matteo smiled. "My mom says promises matter." "They do. especially to a Romano. Several weeks later, life slowly became peaceful again. The Belandi syndicate collapsed after dozens of arrests. The conspiracy dominated headlines across Italy. Giulia refused every television interview. She wanted only one thing: a normal life. One morning, she unlocked the doors of a beautiful neighborhood bakery. Above the entrance hung a brand new sign, Moretti Bakery. She looked around in disbelief. "Luca," she whispered, "you really did it." She had learned only afterward that the building had been purchased anonymously. The ownership papers carried no name, only one handwritten note: "Kindness always finds its way home." Matteo ran out carrying a tray of fresh pastries. "Mama, what is it?" "Our first customers," she laughed. "Then let's not keep them waiting." Across the street, a familiar black SUV remained parked for only a moment. Inside, Vittorio smiled. "You chose well." Luca watched through the window. "I simply kept my word. You could finally introduce yourself properly." Luca shook his head. "She deserves peace. And you? My reward is knowing she's safe." The SUV quietly pulled away before Giulia ever noticed it. She never saw the tattooed mafia boss watching from a distance one last time. But somehow, she smiled anyway, as if she knew someone, somewhere, was still keeping his promise. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more emotional cinematic stories, and share it with someone who believes kindness still has the power to change lives. We'd also love to hear from you in the comments. What would you have done if you were in Giulia's place? Would you have helped the old man without knowing who he really was? Sometimes the strongest people aren't the richest or the most feared. Sometimes they're simply the ones who choose kindness when no one is watching.